When it's the middle of the night and you can't sleep, I feel like that's when time feels so slow because you just want it to be over, but you also realize how much time there is in the night that you're never normally paying attention to, and it just feels so endless.
In general has been feeling like it moves a lot faster, and particularly I've just been noticing at work, I'll look down at the clock on my computer and it'll say like 1:30 or something, and it just like feels like the day just started. And yeah, I think that I haven't quite put together how that's happening.
It was January 26, 2024. I was climbing in El Potrero Chico in Mexico. My party and I decided to climb a 1,600-foot climb called Yankee Clipper. And going up was lovely. The weather was perfectly clear and cool. It was just really smooth climbing up that we had so much fun, and time passes quickly when you're having fun. It was only when we decided to go down, it was getting a little late. We knew we were definitely going to have to rappel down, 1,600 feet in the dark eventually. So I told we were a group of 4, and each pair, usually 2 people have 1 rope, and you usually rappel on 1 rope. So 15 pitches, 100 feet at a time on 1 rope. I decided that we should put the 2 ropes together, and that'll give us enough rope length to get all the way down 2 pitches at a time. So ideally cutting the rappel time in half for the most part. But what ended up happening is the first time we decided to try that, the rope got stuck, and then I volunteered to go get the end that got stuck, but my friend insisted that he go, and he had to climb in the dark. Took him a good amount of time because that's a little bit sketchy. Anyways, he got it unstuck, and he came down, and he decided we were not going to do that. So time passed very slowly because we were a group of 4 going down on 1 rope. So I think it took us maybe 4 hours to get up, and I think 6 or 7 to get down, which is not how it's supposed to be. So I'd say going up was fun, and time passed so quickly. We're having such a good time. But coming down was miserable, and it was cold, and your feet hurt a lot, so the pain definitely makes the minutes, stretch out a little bit.
I feel like anytime I go home to the south, things really slow down, which is funny because I am not looking at my phone, so it's weird. I guess my other instance is constantly checking my phone and feel like time is crawling. But then in this instance, I feel like whenever I'm home or really out of the city, I'm not checking my phone, and it just feels like the day is longer, and it feels like time is like expanded to just like be more present and not feel like, I think sometimes in the city it's so busy it can just feel like you're constantly running out of time until you have to be at the next thing. And so I feel like getting out of the city, time kind of crawls in a more positive way than like sitting at work and waiting for the clock to tick by.
When I was recently admitted to the hospital with an appendix issue and eventually had to get an appendectomy, I wasn't in that much pain, and I was tucked away in the corner of the emergency room. And I think that there was something about the passage of time that was particularly disorienting because I was in a basement, essentially, an emergency room with no windows. The passage of time wasn't really marked by hours, but more by the milestones of getting to be seen by a nurse and then talking to the imaging team and the surgeon eventually and the, resident physician on the floor. And those were kind of like the milestones of passing the time. But I think I also was in this kind of surreal zone where I was in a much better position than a lot of people in the ER who were in a pretty tough spot. So I think that created a strange sense of time. And then there was something about after 10 hours in the ER, finally making it to the private room that I had for the night before the surgery, where, I had big windows and I could see the outside again and I could sense the passage of time in a really clear way, and it all kind of came catching up to me in a way, and sort of like the reality and a little bit of the fear of what I was facing the next morning, even though it wasn't too serious, kind of came like crashing down. So sort of this odd contrast and this kind of surreal suspension.
So when I was a senior in high school, I was driving to someone's house in a rural area, and there were pretty deep ditches on either side. And somehow my car, I kind of lost control of my car. Like maybe I went a little bit off the road, and then my car started going like back and forth. And time felt very slow in that moment, in that like I remembered hearing the voice of my driver's ed teacher telling me to hold on very tightly to the wheel to try and get it to like, to straighten out the car and to like keep it from like jerking over into like the other direction. Like definitely like don't try to overcorrect and go the other way, but just try and like get your wheels to go straight. And so it was all happening very fast, but I remember it like just like those brief seconds feeling like an eternity, because I could really, like I was really taking everything in around me. I was like very aware of the thoughts I was having and the decisions that I was making, and I was able to control my car again, luckily. And then I pulled into the driveway and my heart was pounding.
Okay, I would argue that everything moves fast, because every time I blink my eyes and think about where I am, I'm a year before the last time I thought that. The only time something's ever moved slow is when I've been running a marathon, and at the very end, they count down the miles and they just get further and further apart. And at the way tail end, they're counting down by hundreds of meters. So you go from 800 and then 400 and then 300. And every single time the space gets closer, but it feels like it's getting further apart. And 100 meters is something that should happen in a blink of an eye, but it feels like you're just walking. And it feels like you have that thought at least 15 times, oh, I'm still not there yet. Whereas everywhere else, you have that thought, oh, man, that was already finished.
I don't know if it's like time quickly equals good stuff, time slowly equals bad stuff. I think also like when you're on like a trip with someone you love, like even for 3 or 4 days, that can feel like a universe unto itself where time is limitless too. Although sometimes then the finality kind of creeps in, and maybe it's not. There's a moment where things start moving really quickly when reality sets in.
Okay, so I remember this one first day that somehow lasted like 6 hours, but it felt like maybe one. We met for what was supposed to be like a quick drink, and it just kept going. We started talking and couldn't stop. So, between jokes, stories, random questions, that turned into like deeper conversations. Time just flew. So every time we thought about leaving, one of us would say something that sparked maybe like another hour. And, there was this like flow, like curiosity and comfort blending together. I feel like I felt very connected to like my roots and my culture. I remember laughing so much and like, noticing the light in the bar changing as the night went on. But just time stopped being this thing, you check on your phone. I just felt like suspended. And then when we finally said goodbye, it was almost shocking to realize how late it was. It was like 2 a.m. on a Tuesday or something. And that ride reminded me that sometimes when you are really present, and when you're just curious and connected, it's like time doesn't move in a straight line, it just disappears.
For me, the times that feel they're passing the most quickly are when I'm fully in like a social media hole and I'm just scrolling endlessly and I look up and, you know, like an hour has gone by. And I think in general, times when I'm completely locked into a task are the same. So like when my attention is totally just captivated by the thing I'm doing and not the time passing.
Times that feel to be very slow or like they're dragging on are usually when I'm feeling emotional or physical discomfort. I can't wait for that moment to be over because I'm not enjoying that moment. The things that come to mind are more physical in terms of when I'm in a car and I feel car sick and it feels like the ride will never be over, or it's dragging on for hours and hours, or if I'm having gas pain. And I know usually those episodes only last 20 minutes, but in the moment it really feels like it's dragging on and it will never end because it's hard to bear the pain.
Thinking about a time that time passed quickly for me made me think about yesterday evening when I started putting together a bag. It's kind of a tote bag, but let's say a slightly more refined version, and that rather than having 2 panels, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I would say that there are a lot of things that I do in my life that time passes either slowly or at a regular pace, and that, you know, I'm kind of a mid-level of engaged. But when I was doing this particular thing, which I'm making the bag out of 3 different materials, which are actually 1 pair of pants and 2 jackets, which means there's a lot of cutting up and resewing and putting different and oddly shaped pieces together, even just to make the material, even before starting to put together the bag. Then, I had a lot to do, and kind of just kept going back between the floor, which is where I work, and the sewing machine, floor, sewing machine, floor, sewing machine. And the hours flew by. I can't say that I got it done actually, but I was surprised, and it was actually something I noticed, that the time just really seemed to pass because I think I was just really involved in what I was doing.
So when I look back and think of a time in my life where it just seemed like time was moving at a rapid rate and I really wanted it to slow down, but it didn't, I instantly think back to a friend's going away party, actually. We did a whole day of different activities. We did a picnic. We did a boat ride. We even escaped this crazy thunderstorm where we had to find shelter, and everyone just like ran and took cover. The time specifically during that day that I think of is the ferry ride at the end of the day. It was a really meaningful ride for a few different reasons. First off, just the friends and the love that was there was just really beautiful. And it was just such a wonderful experience for us to all have and, you know, celebrate this friend and tell her how much we were going to like miss her and love her. But something specifically that I remember thinking at the time was when we were all, you know, just like looking at the sky and just kind of experiencing the moment together. I remember thinking, wow, this is going to be a memory of mine someday. Like, I don't know if it necessarily makes sense, but I, in that moment, felt nostalgic for that experience that we were all having.
when time goes fast, I think, is when I'm sitting down for a meal at a restaurant that I'm like really excited about. And it's like, it has to be a perfect culmination of like, I'm excited about the restaurant, I'm excited about the service, like the food, but I'm also excited about who I'm dining with, especially if it's someone that I haven't like caught up with in a long time, whether it's like a friend from out of town or just like catching up with a friend for the first time in a while. And especially if I've been anticipating it for a really long time, sometimes I feel like when it finally gets here, I'm just like, oh, no, 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 no. Like by the time, especially if service moves too fast and it's like, oh my gosh, we already have appetizers. And then I think anticipating the rhythm of the dinner, just knowing how fast it's going to go by of like, man, appetizers, oh my gosh, now we're done with appetizers, our entrees are about to hit. And then it's like, then the entrees hit the table and then it's like, okay, unless you get dessert, like the dinner's over. And so it's just, I think it's like anticipating something that's really exciting and then just watching it like pass by in front of you. But also as you get more full, I think something that protects against that is like getting lost in conversation. But I think if it's something that I'm really excited for, and sometimes I'm too excited to be present in conversation, which is kind of a bummer. Maybe because I'm paying too much attention to it. So trying so hard to enjoy it that it actually flies by instead of just letting myself get lost in it.
Time has passed really quickly for me. It's hard. It's interestingly hard to describe moments when time has passed quickly. It's much easier to pinpoint moments of slowness where the universe seems to be just kind of chugging along in a kind of lethargic, just kind of a weighed down way. Moments of heartbreak are moments where time feels expanded, no question, for me at least. I wanted to say conversely that good things, the moments of excitement, like experiences that are to be savored pass quickly, but I'm not sure that's true either. So, for example, as a kid, I would go to sleepaway camp in North Carolina, and it would always go for a month, and that month felt like this. Just this fully all-enveloping universe where it's not, I loved it, but it's not quite accurate to say that it passed slowly. It was so totalizing that it was its kind of own time onto itself, incommensurable with out-of-camp time, which is why fastness and slowness, it's hard to map. But I would say that actually kind of felt slow as well, because those 4 weeks every year felt like there was an eternity of life, whereas I compare that to, say, the past 4 weeks of my current life, and it's like apples and oranges. Like the camp 4 weeks just felt so much longer and expanded and expanding than kind of like civilian time out of camp as an adult.
The thing that comes to mind about time passing very slowly was in, I believe it was 2019, when it seemed like I was in the middle of a mass shooting in Times Square. A motorcycle backfired and some tourists mistook it for shots. I assume tourists, but some people mistook it for shots and just started running north. And it was like a wall of humans that just started sprinting. And everything slowed down. I'd never been in something that felt like a life or death situation in that specific way. I remember when we had run away, gotten on the subway, gotten downtown and tried to figure out what was happening. We got downtown, we then got in a cab. And my partner at the time and I both immediately looked at our phones, figuring that it had been hours, and that we would have texts and calls from friends or loved ones. And it had been barely 20 minutes, if that. But yeah, everything felt like it was moving in 60 frames per second, especially from the time where we had just entered Times Square. We heard what we thought were shots and saw people running, to when we got to the subway, which couldn't have been more than 30, 40 seconds later. It was very close. But yeah, felt like an eternity.
Slowest are the times when I want time to pass more quickly. So I'm in a situation where I want it to be over, basically. Like I was in a cab with this woman who was my cab driver was kind of acting strangely, and I felt sort of concerned, and I just wanted it to be over. And that was a time when I was just wishing I could fast forward. It seems like the times that go most slowly are the negative ones, but I do wish that I could make the positive ones feel slower and like focus in on them more. But that's hard. Like even when I was getting married, I really wanted that to feel so slow. Like I really wanted to maximize the feeling of walking down the aisle and just lock in on it. And I do think I achieved that a little bit. Like I really intentionally just tried to feel totally present and notice everything. But even so, it's like, what could it be? Like 20, 30 seconds? I couldn't make it feel any longer than it was. And I think I wanted it to be longer, so it felt short. I'm not sure what the difference is there, but I wish that I could sort of apply like attention to make time feel slower.
This might be a universal feeling by humans, or if not universal, at least widespread. But I think for me, the moments that pass quickly are those when I'm feeling the most stimulated. In terms of you're thinking about something, you're watching something, you're conversing with someone, so that your brain is occupied with that material, so that you're not really aware of time passing. I do think it's kind of a shame that some of the happiest moments are those that seem to go by very fast. And maybe it is sort of something good to strive for, to slow down in those moments where you're actually feeling very stimulated and can't really discern that time is passing, to slow those down. Because I've mentioned these moments where you feel a certain way about time, but I haven't really mentioned that realization that you feel like, wow, it's been 1 year, it's been 2 years, it's been 3 years. I hear my mother saying that, she can't believe she's in her 70s, her life has flown by so quickly. I guess I haven't felt that as much. I mean, I'm 30 years old, and I do feel 30 years old. Like, I feel like I've lived 30 years of life, but I guess this creeps up on you as you get older and you realize that you don't have many years left, and time seems to be more severe or something to contend with. Whereas now, every year seems to be exciting. I am getting closer to mortality, but I'm not close yet. I mean, anything can happen, so I suppose I should think about how to appreciate the time that I do have, whether I'm enjoying that time or not.